Have you ever noticed that the people most easily manipulated are precisely those who believe they don't manipulate anyone? It's almost ironic. Those who strive to be fair, correct, transparent, always end up being taken advantage of. The truth is, the world has never worked according to the romantic rules we were taught. It works according to Machiavelli, according to politics guided by reality, not by ideals. And while you try to please, others shape narratives. While you wait for recognition, they build advantage. While you trust the universe, they practice the method no one taught you. The pain that most corrodes modern human beings is not the lack of love, money, or opportunities. It's the feeling of always being the last to understand the game. It's realizing that you did everything right, but still lost ground to people less competent, less honest, and even less prepared. And it hurts to admit that, I know. But there's a reason. You learned life as if it were a book of morals, when it has always been a chessboard of strategies. And on that chessboard, the winner isn't the one with the purest heart. The winner is the one who understands true human nature. And that's exactly what you're going to learn now. No cheap tricks, no catchy phrases, no empty promises. Here you'll discover the 7 silent laws, the ones the powerful use without ever admitting it, the ones that govern positions, relationships, negotiations, and even family dynamics. The method that makes even ordinary people seem unavoidable. A method you only realize too late, unless someone finally shows you. So take a deep breath, because after what you hear here, you'll never again enter an innocent environment. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now. Not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder. You are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. And if you're subscribed to the channel, we have a bonus in the first pinned comment. He learned early on that the world doesn't react to what someone truly is, but to what they appear to be. And this, although many people turn up their noses at it, has always been aligned with what Machiavelli called politics guided by reality, not by ideals. People swear to seek the truth, but deep down they are moved by the surface, by the shine, the tone of voice, the subtlest sign of authority. It's no coincidence that the end justifies the means resonates even today, because the most efficient means has always been perception. It's curious to note how an ordinary person can gain respect simply by adjusting their posture, their gaze, or the way they enter a room. It's almost magical but totally predictable when we observe real human nature. He saw this happen in companies, families, relationships, and even in traffic. A simple example: the driver with a nice car is treated with more patience, and this isn't about injustice, but about instinctive reading. That's why the appearance of virtue weighs so heavily. It's not about being virtuous, it's about appearing virtuous strategically. This delicate game involves virtù and fortuna, skill and opportunity working together to shape what others believe. And of course, whoever understands this begins to quietly dominate the rooms, preparing the ground for something even greater, almost like a prelude to controlling the narrative. Over time, he realizes that perception functions as both a shield and a sword. When someone appears firm, even if they aren't, more doors open for them. When they appear weak, even if brilliant, they are pushed out of the game. Machiavelli said it's better to be feared than loved, provided one takes care to avoid being hated. And this has nothing to do with aggression, but with posture, presence, and the calculated use of force. Sometimes force is simply demonstrating conviction. A simple example that anyone can apply is, in important conversations, reduce justifications. Each justification is a crack in the armor. Another point, dressing well is not frivolous, it's a strategy. Adjusting the environment in which you live is also a strategy. Books on display, an organized desk, a pleasant smell. All of this creates a psychological field that communicates silent power. Perception is a daily construction, almost a constant training in adaptability, because the world changes and people's perspectives change along with it. But whoever masters this dance begins to influence even when they don't intend to, as if their presence carried its own message. And it is at this point that the foundation for something even deeper is born: control of the narrative. Ultimately, those who understand the value of perception see life as a living chessboard. Every gesture is a move, every word a position. And this has nothing to do with cheap manipulation, but with conscious strategy. After all, even Machiavelli advocated decisions based on real human nature. He observes that leaders who prosper use their own loyal armies, and these armies today can be reputation, authority, digital credibility. A simple, well-crafted professional profile generates more invitations than an extensive resume. This happens because image delivers the first blow even before reality presents itself. He knows that the appearance of virtue protects, opens doors, and generates advantage. And from time to time, perception even creates opportunities that the person is not yet prepared to seize, but virtue allows them to grow fast enough not to waste the fortune. That's when many understand. Perception is not just about how others see you, but about how you can lead them to see what strengthens your journey. And when this foundation is solid, the next step naturally arises, manipulating perception not just to exist, but to drive results. He realizes, with an almost uncomfortable clarity, that whoever controls the narrative doesn't just control the story. They also control the emotions, the reactions, and ultimately the decisions of other people. Machiavelli understood this deeply when he spoke about politics guided by reality, not by ideals. The narrative is the invisible framework that defines what people interpret as truth, even when reality is different. And curiously, it's not necessary to lie to manipulate a narrative. It's enough to choose which parts of the truth to highlight. When he learns that the end justifies the means, he also understands that the narrative is one of those means, a silent path that leads the other to a specific perception. And in practical life, this appears everywhere. That colleague who always tells their version before everyone else and becomes a reference. That leader who repeats the same story until opinions are transformed. By mastering the narrative, he creates what Machiavelli called the appearance of virtue, even when virtue is still under construction. It's a refined, almost artistic game that demands virtù and fortuna to execute. And that opens the door to something greater, like the art of building and destroying reputations. When someone masters storytelling, they can transform attacks into fuel, criticism into authority, and mistakes into admired learning experiences. And this is no coincidence. It's strategy, a deep understanding of real human nature. People react to the story before they react to the facts. That's why whoever narrates first shapes the terrain. They learn that it's better to be feared than loved, not to intimidate, but to establish clear narrative boundaries. What they tolerate, what they don't tolerate, what they represent. And they also understand that it's essential to avoid being hated, because hatred creates parallel narratives that are independent of facts. In practical situations, they use this to position themselves at work. Instead of over-explaining, they summarize. Instead of justifying failures, they transform them into lessons. Instead of seeking approval, they show direction. Storytelling is silent power. It's the calculated use of force, not physical, but psychological. And when well-tuned, it creates emotional truth. By realizing this, they begin to shape how they are perceived, preparing the ground for more advanced management, the mastery of reputation. Controlling the narrative is like having an invisible army, an army that isn't seen, but that acts. Machiavelli spoke of having one's own loyal armies, and today this can be interpreted as ideas, speeches, symbols, and behaviors that work for you even when you're silent. He discovers that by repeating certain values, maintaining a pattern of presence, and strategically choosing what to reveal, he creates a magnetic field that attracts respect. And this requires constant adaptability because the narrative that works today may not work tomorrow. To apply this to daily life, he begins to document small victories, show processes, tell real stories that communicate strength, sobriety, and vision. Every social media post, every informal conversation, every silent decision, everything becomes a piece in the construction of his own narrative. And it is precisely this narrative that becomes his greatest asset when the inevitable moment arrives, building and destroying reputations with surgical precision. He soon realizes that reputation is not just a social detail, it's a currency of power. And as Machiavelli taught, those who understand politics guided by reality, not ideals, also understand that prestige is a silent weapon, capable of opening doors or knocking them down. Building a reputation requires virtu, that almost intuitive ability to act strategically, and it also requires fortuna, the capacity to seize opportunities when they arise. He learns that reputation is not born from great deeds, but from small standards, arriving on time, keeping promises, acting firmly even under pressure. These accumulated details create the appearance of virtue, so often mentioned by Machiavelli, which functions as a social shield. And curiously, most people fail precisely because they ignore this and believe that only inner truth matters. But it doesn't. What matters is what is seen, perceived, and commented on. And when he understands this deeply, he begins to see how reputation is the first step towards something greater, the mastery of advantage. But he also learns that just as reputation can be built, it can be destroyed. And this is the most dangerous field of human strategy. Machiavelli said that it is better to be feared than loved, because love is volatile, but fear creates stability. However, one must avoid being hated, for hatred makes people without any strength dangerous. He understands, then, that destroying reputations requires the calculated use of force. Never exaggerate, never humiliate, never attack directly when subtlety suffices. A simple example is to expose facts, not opinions. Let the person dig their own grave while you maintain composure. Another is to cut off access, remove privileges, redirect light without ever losing your composure. The destruction of another's reputation should never be noisy. It should be, as Machiavelli would say, guided by real human nature. And by mastering this balance, he begins to realize how reputation builds walls and bridges at the same time, revealing the importance of constant maintenance. Over time, he discovers that a solid reputation functions like its own loyal armies. It protects even when he's not present. It's almost like having an invisible honor guard that precedes his arrival and continues acting after he's gone. And this is only possible because he adopts constant adaptability, adjusting his image, his discourse, his habits. In the modern world, this can be applied to something simple: a consistent digital presence, a history of actions that confirms what he communicates, and behavior that reinforces the perception he wants to create. A strong reputation attracts allies, wards off predators, and builds accumulated credibility, ready to be used in negotiations, leadership, and disputes. But all this only works if he knows how to maintain the advantage, because reputation without strategic advantage becomes mere vanity. And it is precisely this silent bridge that leads him to the next principle. Never surrender to others the power that keeps him on top. He learns, almost as a silent law of life, that advantage is not gained solely through force, it is maintained through prudence. Machiavelli always warned that the true strategist operates according to a policy guided by reality, not by ideals, understanding that the world rewards those who know how to protect what they have already conquered. Maintaining an advantage means observing before acting, measuring before speaking, choosing before exposing. It means understanding that the most dangerous enemy is the one who knows too much about you. Therefore, he adopts the rule of the calculated use of force, showing only enough to be respected, but never so much as to reveal his weaknesses. He realizes that often people's mistake is to give emotional, logistical, or strategic power to those who do not even deserve trust. And he learns that the true army that defends his position, those loyal and personal armies, are his limits, his discipline, and his ability to remain unpredictable. Because, when he maintains his advantage, he avoids being an easy target and prepares the ground for something even deeper, deciding when to show vulnerability. To maintain his advantage, he comes to understand that exposure is a risky currency. Those who show too much lose their aura. Those who talk too much reveal their roots. Those who open up too much of their lives give ammunition to their opponent. And, as Machiavelli said, it is better to be feared than loved, provided one takes care to avoid being hated. He realizes that fear is born from the unknown, from the layers that are not entirely accessible to the outside gaze. And he applies this to daily life. He reduces explanations, cuts justifications, keeps his plans private. A simple example is never revealing financial goals to those who don't add value. Another is not showing sensitive points to those who can use them as weapons. He understands that, by limiting access, he creates psychological boundaries that establish respect. This respect is what most interpret as strength, and strength, guided by virtù and fortuna, opens space for strategic moves that only those who remain discreet can execute. And discreetly, he continues, preparing himself to use even his own vulnerability as an instrument. Maintaining an advantage also requires constant adaptability. He understands that power is not static, it either grows or disappears. Therefore, he reviews his alliances, observes changes in the environment, anticipates crises, and moves before the game turns against him. And this doesn't mean paranoia, but rather an understanding of real human nature, the kind Machiavelli studied with precision. He begins to act like a modern strategist. He documents his victories, records his mistakes without exposing himself, strengthens his skills, and avoids environments that drain his energy. His decisions, even if silent, follow the logic of the calculated use of force. Never waste energy where there is no return. And precisely because he maintains his advantage in such a disciplined way, he realizes that sometimes showing vulnerability at the right moments can further strengthen his position, a paradox that paves the way for the next silent law. He discovers that vulnerability is not weakness, it's a tool. Machiavelli knew that, in politics guided by reality, not ideals, even emotions can be used strategically. Showing fragility at the wrong moment is like offering your neck to the opponent. Showing it at the right moment creates an emotional bridge that disarms resistance. He realizes that when he chooses to reveal a fear, a doubt, or a setback, he humanizes his image without losing strength as long as it's done with calculated use of force. It's almost like applying the logic of virtù and fortuna, the ability to choose the moment and the opportunity to use it to his advantage. He begins to test this in social settings, showing calm when they want to irritate him, firmness when they want to confuse him, and vulnerability only when it reinforces his reputation, not when it weakens it. And he understands that, if used well, vulnerability creates the opposite effect to what many imagine. It strengthens, brings closer, seduces. It is precisely this dynamic that leads him to perceive the value of acting behind the scenes. He also notes that strategic vulnerability is one of the most elegant ways to manipulate expectations. When someone believes he is fragile, he gains space to observe. When they believe he is unshakable, he gains respect. And, as Machiavelli said, it is better to be feared than loved, but this doesn't prevent it from being useful at calculated moments to show a trace of humanity to avoid being hated. He learns that the great mistake people make is confusing sincerity with exposure. To say everything you feel, everything you think, everything you fear, that's not sincerity, it's recklessness. Strategic sincerity, yes, is a weapon. In everyday life, he applies this when, for example, he admits a small mistake to prevent them from noticing a bigger one, or when he asks naive questions to observe hidden intentions. By balancing what he reveals and what he conceals, he becomes unpredictable. And being unpredictable, in the logic of real human nature, is to be respected. But the most powerful part of strategic vulnerability is that it only works when combined with constant adaptability. He learns to adjust his emotions according to the context, just as he adjusts his narrative, his reputation, and his posture. And in doing so, he discovers that vulnerability isn't about crying, opening his heart, or confessing traumas, but about selecting information that strengthens his position. It's like having his own loyal but invisible armies, composed of gestures, nuances, and silences, and this creates a magnetic mystery. People don't know if he's retreating or preparing an attack, if he's yielding or calculating, if he's weak or just appearing weak to observe better. This ambiguity protects him. And it is precisely this protection that opens the way for the next level of power, exerting influence without needing to be in sight, without needing to shout, without needing to prove anything to anyone. He discovers that the most effective power is not the one that shouts, but the one that whispers. It is the one that moves silently, based on politics guided by reality, not by ideals, observing real human nature without needing to confront it directly. Machiavelli already explained that truly strong leaders don't need to announce every step, because their results speak for themselves. By acting behind the scenes, he avoids unnecessary wear and tear and keeps his strategic advantage intact. It is the pure, calculated use of force, doing only what is necessary without wasting energy on public displays. He learns that the unseen force is the most frightening, because the invisible always seems greater. And so he becomes the kind of person who solves problems before they become crises, who influences decisions without appearing in the picture, who builds alliances without making a fuss. This posture transforms him into someone who walks with his own security, almost like a general who commands his own loyal armies from miles away. Over time, he realizes that acting behind the scenes creates a special kind of authority, a silent, almost mystical one. People don't know exactly what he does, but they sense that he does a lot, and that creates respect. Machiavelli said it's better to be feared than loved, and the fear here stems from the unknown, the absence of explanations, the controlled unpredictability. But at the same time, he is careful to avoid being hated, because hatred arises when power is perceived as oppressive, not as wise. In practice, he begins to operate like those discreet mentors whom everyone consults, but few truly know. He gives timely advice, guides important decisions, and maintains influence even when he is not present. He doesn't advertise, doesn't seek recognition, doesn't compete for the spotlight. His moves are so precise that they seem like the work of chance. But of course, they are made with virtu and fortuna, always attentive to the scenario to seize the right moment. Acting behind the scenes also demands a high degree of constant adaptability. He needs to perceive when his presence should be invisible and when he should emerge firmly. It's almost a dance between shadow and light. And this dance only works because he learned in the previous stages to control perception, narrative, reputation, and vulnerability. Now every step is calculated. He forms alliances before they need him, withdraws before they miss him, appears only when his voice will have maximum impact. This is how he builds the kind of influence that endures, that creates dependence, that shapes the habits and decisions of those who follow him. Without noise, without apparent effort, without resistance, a power that spreads like roots, invisible on the surface, but dominant underground. And it is precisely this silent depth that paves the way for the next stage, prolonged impact, the kind of influence that doesn't end when he steps away. He understands that true power is not what impresses in the moment, but what remains even when he is no longer present. Machiavelli knew that in politics guided by reality, not ideals, lasting influence is worth more than any momentary display of force. Therefore, he learns to build lasting impact, something that becomes part of people's mentality, not just circumstances. A mentor, for example, doesn't teach to be admired. He teaches so that his lessons resonate when the student is alone. An effective leader doesn't control through fear, but creates structures that maintain discipline even in his absence. And this is the art of building subtle dependence, delivering so much value, so much clarity, and so much strategy that people naturally return for more. It's like forming your own loyal armies, not by imposition, but by utility. And this utility, of course, only works when aligned with the calculated use of force, knowing when to give, when to withhold, and when to temporarily disappear so that they miss you. He also understands that lasting impact isn't about charisma, but about strategic predictability. If you want to influence someone for years, you must always act according to what you've built. A firm stance, clear communication, decisions based on real human nature. Machiavelli said it's better to be feared than loved, but he also said to avoid being hated, because hatred destroys structures that could perpetuate your legacy. Thus, he creates a cycle. He offers direction, provokes reflection, guides actions, and from time to time withdraws support so that the person can become stronger. This dynamic creates healthy dependence, one in which the other feels they grow with you, not because of you. And with that, your influence becomes something that accompanies people even from a distance. They quote your advice, remember your metaphors, use your strategies. Your impact ceases to be momentary and transforms into a tradition, almost an inherited teaching. But for this impact to last, it requires constant adaptability. It's not enough to teach, it's necessary to update. It's not enough to influence, it's necessary to remain relevant. Therefore, he follows changes, observes trends, adjusts methods, expands his repertoire, and he applies virtu and fortuna to create opportunities that leave a mark. A successful project, accurate guidance, a silent action that changes someone's trajectory. He knows that legacy is not about building a monument, but about planting ideas that continue to grow. And he also understands that strategic dependence is not about enslaving people. It's about making them voluntarily connected to the value he generates. It is this rare combination of utility, wisdom, and silent strength that ensures his name circulates even when he is not speaking. And it is precisely this echo that prepares the final ground, the last movement, understanding that all this influence depends first and foremost on the ability to navigate perception, narrative, and time. He realizes that all power built, perception, narrative, reputation, advantage, vulnerability, silent influence, and lasting impact depends on one ultimate skill: reading the times. Machiavelli taught that those who govern well do not act on impulse, but according to a policy guided by reality, not by ideals, understanding the rhythm of people, environments, and circumstances. This reading of the times is a form of virtu, while the arrival of opportunities is fortuna. And when the two meet, he moves pieces that seem simple, but that change entire games. He learns, for example, not to respond immediately to provocations, not out of fear, but out of calculation, not to correct someone in public, not out of weakness, but out of strategy, not to act when everyone else acts, because the strength of those who think lies precisely in doing what no one else is doing. He begins to see each silence as a tool, each pause as power, each delay as terrain where he can observe. And in doing so, he realizes that time is his greatest ally in maintaining his active influence. And it is precisely this intimate relationship with time that drives him to use perception to his advantage in an even more profound way. In learning to read the times, he also discovers something essential. Perception is not static. It changes according to the environment, the collective mood, social tensions, and even the life cycles of the people around him. Therefore, he incorporates constant adaptability as a pillar. He adjusts his posture when the social climate calls for moderation. He adjusts his tone when the scenario demands strength. He adjusts his advance when the environment calls for caution. Machiavelli said that it is better to be feared than loved, but he always reminded us of the importance of avoiding being hated, because hatred blinds, distorts narratives, and destroys bridges. Thus, he learns to balance presence and absence, strength and gentleness, action and observation. A practical example: when he perceives that someone is emotionally reactive, he does not confront them. He waits for the wave to pass before speaking. When he perceives that an environment is too competitive, he withdraws just enough not to be a target, but not so much that he is forgotten. Reading the times is this: moving like water, without losing form, and without ever relinquishing control. In the end, he understands that his lasting influence doesn't depend on shouting the loudest, but on seeing things first. By uniting all the pillars, calculated use of force, his own loyal armies, politics guided by reality, not ideals, and decisions based on real human nature, he becomes someone who acts as a behind-the-scenes strategist, capable of anticipating behaviors, predicting conflicts, avoiding setbacks, and multiplying opportunities. And this ability to anticipate is precisely what differentiates ordinary strategists from figures who become legendary. Because real influence isn't about having power today, but about having power tomorrow. It's not about winning a dispute, but about creating an ecosystem where all disputes converge in your favor. And while most worry about appearing strong, he worries about appearing inevitable. And inevitability, as Machiavelli would perfectly understand, is the greatest kind of power one can cultivate. This silent and continuous inevitability opens the final loop, where all this knowledge converges on the most important point: how to transform all of this into a conscious method, capable of silently manipulating any scenario. Now that you've seen how the 7 laws of silent manipulation structure every power dynamic, from personal relationships to professional disputes, the question that remains is simple. What are you going to do with this knowledge? Are you going to return to the world as the same person who always gets the short end of the stick? Or are you finally going to assume the role of someone who sees first, acts first, and wins first? Because knowing is one thing, applying is another. And only those who apply it change their lives. Ask yourself now, with brutal honesty, who is controlling your narrative? Who is shaping your reputation? Who is deciding the pace of your life? You or others? And most importantly, how much longer will you live in innocent mode in a world governed by strategists? If this video sparked something in you, a feeling of unease, anger, or clarity, that's already the first sign of change. But change only continues if you keep learning. So before you leave, do the obvious thing that most people don't do. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here you will learn every week what no one dares to teach you about power, strategy, and human nature.